Okay. So here's a more lateral version of the map of West Highland Way. Now, to hear the name West Highland Way, you think it must be an ancient trail. Not so. This is a short history of it. The West Highland Way is now 40 years old, well, 42 now, and famous around the world. As Scotland's first official long-distance walking route, it has grown and grown in popularity since its inception in 1980. Over the past 40 years, thousands have hiked the 96 miles, and it continues to attract visitors from far-flung places, as well as locals returning to walk the route again. Tom Hunter, an ex-RAF serviceman and keen hill walker from Glasgow, came up with the route partly as a means to protect the eastern shore of Loch Lomond from development. The section of the West Highland Way along Loch Lomond's shore continues into the ancient woodland that Tom sought to protect. Its habitat well worth protecting. In the 1970s, the route was extensively surveyed on foot by a woman called Fiona Rose, who is said to have worn out a number of hiking boots in the process. In 1974, permission was granted for construction to begin, and it was officially opened in 1980. Now, this, as I said, it's 96 miles now. It started out as 90. For comparison, the Pacific Coast Trail is 2,650 miles, and the Appalachian Trail is 2,190 miles. So there's really no comparison there. Most people take 7 to 10 days to walk it. We were supposed to take 10 days, which we did all of that. And of course, people started running it in an incredible time of 13 hours and 41 minutes and 8 seconds. Rob Sinclair holds the overall record for running the West Highland Way. The female record stands at 17 hours, 16 minutes, and 20 seconds. It belongs to Lucy Calhoun and has stood for 13 years. Now, for some comparison, in 2023, Carl Meltzer ran the 2,190-mile Appalachian Trail in 45 days, 22 hours, and 38 minutes. That's 47 miles a day. And then a guy named Carol. How many shoes did he wear? They didn't say, but I imagine quite a few. A fellow named Carol Sabe ran the Pacific Coast Trail in 46 days, 12 hours, and 56 minutes in 2023, and that was 57 miles a day.
Are these people crazy?
Yeah, they're crazy.
Well, then you should compare it to the Pony Express.
Oh. So the trail is marked by these tags, and you can follow it all by yourself if you want to. So this is the elevation profile, greatly compressed. And it looks like it's a lot steeper than it really is. The highest peak here is only 1,800 feet.
It's almost like Missouri. It's like Missouri.
It very is. It is really, yeah. Mm-hmm. So for the mileage we went, May 10th, 6.8 miles. That was just walking around Glasgow to get rid of the jet lag. May 11th, 10.9. 11.6, 9, 15.4, 8.1, 14.4, 12.7, 10.5, and 15.8 on the last day. Now that for me was a total of 115 miles because we walked around a lot after we got wherever the town was we were going to stay in that night.
You had a pedometer?
My phone did.
Oh.
So this is the group. We're in Milngavie to start out. This is Hill Danforth, and that is Sandy McGrath and her husband, Hal, and that's me, and that's our guide, Lorraine Grundy, and that's Priscilla Danforth, who's married to him. There were supposed to be 12 to begin with, but People just gradually dropped out. So Milngavie to Dryman was 12.5 miles, 835 feet up and 845 feet down. So I started out with enthusiasm. I don't have a map for this day because I forgot to turn my map facility on. So the trail continues this way all the way to Dryman.
So it's rocky like that all the way.
Mostly, yeah. Some worse, some not quite so bad. Very mild hills at the beginning.
Hey, Sharon,
Uh-huh.
the audio is. Can you try to do that?
Oh, that's better. Okay.
Aaron, what was the weather like?
Just like this, 60, high 60s, low 70s.
You didn't have torrential rains, did you?
No. We only had to put our rain gear on once and then it stopped in 5 minutes. Wasn't worth taking along.
And
So
when were you there again?
May of 2016, yeah. So our first site was a bunch of Highland cattle lying down on the job.
So that stone wall was, old,
Oh, yeah, very old.
back to the Druids.
Probably. So these little kiosks were all along the trail and you can get almost anything for an immediate need in there. You just take what you want and leave the money. And walking around Dryman that night, came across this mailbox with a crocheted hood on it, which was pretty hilarious. And that was our hotel after the first day on the trail. It's a lovely place. May 12th, Dryman to Balmaha, 7.5 miles posted, 11.6 actual. And that is Loch Lomond out there in the
Wow.
distance. And then the next day we climbed Conic Hill, which was 1,280 feet up, and then a 1,400 foot descent. Harder than it sounded because this was our first day of actual hill encounters. We came across several areas of clear cuts that day. The trees are being harvested actually by the Scottish Forestry Commission for the timber industry. And they're being replaced by saplings. You can see these little green sleeves here.
What kind of trees were they?
Conifers mostly.
Do the walkers tend to stay together? Or
Yeah, we stayed. Well, our guide insisted we stay together because we had deadlines to make. Yeah.
Do any singing along your hike?
No, we didn't. We probably should have. Well, I think we did right in the chorus of Loch Lomond. Yeah, I have to sing that. So our next hill was Conic Hill. It wasn't all up. We did get stairs sometimes. And this had obviously been cut and regrown because the trees are all the same size. I don't know what Priscilla's staring at there. She's staring at something. So there were a lot of little creeks and waterfalls everywhere, and they all had these guards over them. They're called hecks, and they can raise them and lower them. And trash gets caught in them a lot, so the farmers have to go clean them out. Here I am at the top of Conic Hill.
Ooh, that's the lake behind you.
Uh-huh. And all this yellow, the yellow in the background is either gorse or Scottish broom. The gorse is invasive and the Scottish broom they like, but you can't tell them apart really from a distance. So we just crested the hill and started down the other side. That was treacherous. That was really treacherous. So we made it to Balmaha, And it's me pointing to Conic Hill on the side sign. And we found out that across the little lake there was a nature reserve. So we took the little boat over to the nature reserve and walked around there for a while. And we're having a little snack to tide us over to supper.
You have to carry a big bag.
About the size of that one down there in the foreground.
How was the food managed?
For our lunches, we would buy a lunch in the store or in the inn, wherever we had stayed the night before, and pack the lunch. And then the inns always had supper. And it was a set menu because it was a set.
For the whole group?
Yeah.
Was it crowded? Was this trail
No, not really.
You
Didn't
have
see
any
very
eggs?
I did not have, no, we had opportunities. We had several opportunities, but I don't think we had it. So that was my little cottage for the night, only the room up in the corner. That I think there were 4 rooms in there.
Lovely.
So there's the little ferry we took over to the nature reserve. It was built in 1948 and it's still operating 2 or 3 times a day. They go back and forth. So Hill decided to skinny dip. And I decided to immortalize the moment.
Did he know you were capturing it?
No,
Or-
no. I gave it,
Even better.
I gave him a copy later.
What was the water temperature?
Too cold to do that. It was way too cold to be doing that.
He was the only brave soul?
Uh-huh.
Oh, so
Yeah. The rest of us took our shoes off, but that's as far as it went.
So what's going on here? It looks,
We're having lunch on the rocks. We already ate. We're,
I'm talking about the trees behind.
oh, a windstorm. A windstorm.
Quite a
blew
wind.
down. Yeah. But see, the roots aren't very deep and they're in,
because of the stone, I imagine.
Yeah. stone doesn't hold them too well. So that's by the shores of Loch Lomond. On the Bonnie banks of Loch Lomond. Now that's my pack. I'm in the red jacket there.
And you didn't camp out?
No.
Did anybody read Scottish literature in the evening or Robbie Burns?
We went to bed evening.
That's a nice one.
Yeah, cattle or sheep usually. Going up into Queen Elizabeth's Forest Park. So I meant to say in my introduction, this is totally not the travelogue of Scotland. It's only documentation of the walk I took. So there's
So the walkway file was.
most of the time, which was a good thing because we had one little girl, well, Sandy was nonstop talker. I tried to drop behind her
Yeah.
as much as I could and as far as I could.
What nationality were these people?
American, except for Lorraine, the guide was British. This was a fun little place, Rower Inn Hotel. And we didn't stay in the hotel proper. Well, all of us, 2 of us got this duplex, which was really nice. It had a washer and dryer, which we needed desperately back then. And it had a lounge area and a picnic table.
That was the Scotch.
I don't like scotch. I didn't have any scotch.
That was the coffee.
Oh,
Really? Was it good?
oh, fabulous. So this is from Rowardinnen to Inverarden. And this is what the guidebook says. This route drops down to the loch on a small path which forges a tortuous route, clinging as close to the shore as it dares. Many short, steep climbs, fallen trees, and rocky sections make the going slow and arduous. So how far did we go that day? 15 miles.
You only heard that 1,400.
Only, yeah. So it did smooth out. It did.
Nobody fell or.
No, not even me. More rocks on the road. My husband sees this kind of thing and he says, "Where's the trail?"
That's pretty good.
Tricky.
What kind of shoes did you wear?
Oh, I'll show you. There.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Hmm.
Now this one was interesting. There was a guy riding his bike on this trail, and he was following us, and he carried his bike down this trail along with his backpack that had his tent in it.
And he was 28.
Well, he looked like he was maybe in his late 30s, 40s, old enough to know better. So we're flattening out again here. And this is called a bothy, and you can take refuge in here from the weather or camp inside for the night. And that's what the inside is.
Are they really dotted all over Scotland?
Yeah.
That is too cool.
So we end up at the Inverarnon, the town of Inverarnon, with the Drovers Inn. Now, the Drovers Inn is very famous. A small girl's ghost haunts the Highlands. Guests sleeping in room 6 of the Drovers Inn in Argyll in Bute, Scotland, have reported feeling her icy form drip water onto their bed in the dead of night. Local lore says that the child drowned after trying to fish her doll out of the quick-moving nearby river and now wanders in search of her missing toy. She's not the only restless soul reportedly spotted at the inn, which has been welcoming wayfarers for 300 years. Among the breathtaking scenery of Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park, the Drovers Inn and its pub make a fine destination for travelers looking for hearty food and spirits. Notice they didn't say anything about the rooms. Today, its location on the West Highland Way makes it a popular spot for long-distance hikers, but the inn was originally a stopover point for the drovers or cattle herders, after which it is named. Historically, Scottish cattle herders made a yearly trek from the Highlands where their animals grazed to the lowlands where they took them to market. The pilgrimage over rough, isolated terrain proved the perfect battleground for the cattle-stealing hijinks of Scotland's warrior clans, and ghosts of drovers who met bloody ends in these skirmishes are said to haunt the inn to this day. The inn's most famous guest was Rob Roy MacGregor, a local folk hero known as the Scottish Robin Hood, and immortalized in countless stories and poems. Around 1771, an unpaid loan left Rob Roy an outlaw, and his subsequent cattle raiding and support of the Jacobite uprising of 1715 gave him a charge of treason. After 2 captures and 2 dramatic escapes, Roy was pardoned by the king.
There's also a movie.
Oh, I think there's been several. There have been several movies, yeah.
And there's a drink called a rum.
That's right.
Yeah. So this inn has not been updated at all.
Oh, yeah.
So this is
For
what
300 years?
I
Tell us
swear.
about the bathrooms.
They are primitive. Yeah, they had showers and toilets and sinks, but
Well,
it was very. So this is what the sign looked like, and the rest of the inn on the inside looked like that. Just to tell you. And they had all manner of stuffed animals there. The bear is attacking Priscilla.
No, I'm sure they were decomposing.
But the food was great. So we had Sunday chicken dinner there. So off to Crane Lyric on Monday.
Did you have breaks in the middle of the day, or when did you,
Oh, we stopped for
how did
lunch.
you organize these 15?
You just kept putting one foot in
just
front of
kept
the
going.
other.
Oh, my goodness.
That's the path.
Huh?
That was the path with all the rocks.
Yeah.
You have a comment, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I can't see the chat. Oh, yes, I can chat. Thank you. It was only 10 days, 11 days that time. I've been in Scotland before, but this was an 11-day trip. And that's just the river that we were walking by.
The name of the river?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
And part of the hike was this ladder. So this is a sheep creep. So the sheep can get under the railroad instead of trying to cross the railroad. What did you say, Steve?
It said where if they cross the river, they could turn up.
Yeah, very quickly. So again, the trail smooths out for a while.
Look, blue sky.
Yeah, blue sky. Oh, it was very rare. So you can see the trail
Left.
up here.
Oh,
There's somebody on. And that night we stayed at the Crane Lyric Hotel. They weren't ready for us. So we went down the street and had scones and coffee. They were wonderful.
Yeah.
The next day, Crane Lyric to the Bridge of Orkney. And as it says, this is not the Bridge of Orkney, this is a railroad bridge. And we got a piece of road, something smooth to walk on. Now this is the cemetery, Priory of St. Philip. A ruined small religious house lying next to Kirkton Farm on the left bank of the River Fillion. Oh, I guess it's the River Fillion. Lies on the left bank of the River Fillion, 2 miles southeast of Tyndrum and 3 miles northwest of Crane Lyric. St. Fillion's Priory was established by Robert the Bruce in 1318, close to the site of an older foundation. St. Fillion had brought Christianity from Iona in the 8th century and created a monastic settlement at nearby Auchtertyre. Following his defeat at the Battle of Methven in 1306, Bruce was granted sanctuary at the old chapel here. In gratitude, he gave land to build a new foundation and the church at Killian to give it to the Augustinian monks of Inchaffray Abbey on condition they maintain the new priory. Alistair MacDougall, seeking revenge for Bruce's murder of John Comyn, tracked down Bruce and his men to the priory. A battle ensued in a nearby field, known now as Dalray or the King's Field, in which Bruce and his men fought greatly against greater superior numbers before being forced to flee. In retreat, Bruce's men threw their heavy arms into the tiny Loch Arm, where they are thought to remain this day. In 1607, the priory had become the property of the Campbells. Little remains of the building, as the stones were quarried to construct the neighboring farmhouse and its outbuildings. So there were 4 gravestones from the 7th and the 8th century. And that's all that's left of the priory. So this pool is supposed to cure mental illness and other ailments. We had to restrain.
Did you push anybody in?
We had to we had to restrain Hill because, he'd already skinny dipped once, and figured that was enough. So here we are at Tinder, and we stopped for lunch, and so we're about halfway. Fort William's the second sign down, 47 more miles. So we had, I think we had chili in there, which wasn't a very Scottish dish.
Low hanging clouds.
Yeah, kind of low. And here's more of the gorse or Scotch broom. I think the gorse has thorns and the Scotch broom doesn't, so you have to get really close to town. More cows. This is the real bridge of Orkney.
Oh, those Africa lines.
Yeah. It's named after the crossing over the River Orkney, which was constructed by the bridge was constructed by the British Army during the pacification of Highland clans following the Battle of Culloden in 1746. Military roads were built between the Scottish lowlands and Highlands of northern Scotland to facilitate the speedy movement of the troops, the Crown forces. Our hotel for the night. Lovely. So,
were the hotels fairly full when you got there every night? Or-
yeah, they were,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm. So, we walked through the Rannoch Moor to the King's House Hotel. We were supposed to stay somewhere else that night, but the inn where we were booked canceled our reservation because they had a bigger party come in that needed our rooms. So they just canceled us. So we had to find another place to stay. And we didn't stay at the King's House because it was $300 a night. They had gentrified it. We go trudging along.
Did you find a bothy?
Didn't need one. Didn't need one. So Telford revolutionized the roads in England. They were mostly just mud and puddles until he took over. In the 18th and early 19th centuries, Britain's transport was mostly on foot, horseback, or by stagecoach. Many roads were rough, sometimes little more than tracks, and progress could be very slow, especially in bad weather. In 1801, after a career mostly designing and building bridges and canals, engineer Thomas Telford was commissioned by the government to improve road travel in his native Scotland. This massive project lasted 20 years and included 920 miles of new roads, as well as 1,000 new bridges, improvements to canals, and 32 new churches. Telford was also responsible for rebuilding sections of the London to Holyhead Road. Much of his road is now part of the A5. Road builders in the late 18th century used stone, gravel, and sand for construction. It was common to dump rough gravel onto mud without putting in proper drains. Telford's innovation included a system of raising the road's foundation at its center so water could drain away. He also improved the method of using broken stones to build roads, analyzing the thickness of stones, traffic movement, and the gradient of slopes to come up with a more scientific approach. Telford's method was to use large and then smaller interlocking stones. These were graded and drained and coated with a coat of smooth pebbles on the tops. Telford's ideas were widely adopted and used for roads everywhere.
Was that basically a cobblestone road then?
Not quite. The stones are much smaller. This is a Telford road here. Yeah, yeah. That's the King's House. They gentrified it. That caused a ruckus. And here we had to wait for the taxi that was going to take us back to the hotel where we made arrangements finally. And while waiting for the taxi, I had the best cup of coffee I've ever had in my life. So anyway, our hotel that night was the Bala Chulish. And it obviously the Adams family had been there, but my room was huge and gorgeous. And that was the view out my window that evening.
And you weren't allowed to stay more than one night.
No, we got to
Oh,
stay
2
2 nights, 2 nights there.
That must have been a nice break.
Oh, it was, but we walked, I mean, we walked where we would have gone and they took us back to the hotel and then they took us back to where we left off the next morning after the second night. So taxi picked us up at the Malachulish and took us back where we left off at the King's Hat House. And this was the day of the Devil's Staircase. So why is it called the Devil's Staircase? Between the 18th and the 20th centuries, many people from Glencoe who worked at the reservoir on the other side of the mountain would cross the mountain after work, mountain hill, go to the pub in town. Many times they failed to get home because the path was steep and treacherous and they'd had a lot of ale. So it was assumed they had been taken by the devil. And it also may have been named that by the soldiers who had to build the path. Very innocuous start. It's steeper, gets steeper. There's the stone that marks the beginning of it. I'm still laughing, so that's good. And
Hysterically though, by that.
so we started up and up,
Yeah.
made it to the top. So the view wasn't really all that spectacular from the top. I mean, it's not the Rockies or anything.
Very refreshing.
That's the wind. Oh, did I mention it's very windy? Very windy in Scotland. So we made it up and now we go down. Last day, King's House to Fort William. This was the killer hike. I twisted my right knee early in the day, and in favoring it, I twisted my left knee too. So by the end of those 15 and a half miles, I could barely walk. And when I got home, I went to the orthopedist and he said I had stress fractures across the tops of both of my tibias. So I had to, after walking all that way, I had to sit in my big green reading chair for 6 weeks. And I loved it. Lots of little waterfalls. And this is typical. So the beginning, it started back here.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
It's the
yeah.
beginning of that picture. It's the beginning of that picture.
Any little animals, turtles, rabbits?
No, we didn't see any deer. All we saw were cows and sheep.
Oh.
And the path looks like that most of the 15 miles, but it's just gradually up and down, up and down.
And no vehicles.
No. I joked that this would be a good place for the rescue helicopter. They didn't take me seriously, so I kept going.
But you were serious, weren't you?
What?
You were serious.
I was serious. Because it only gets worse. So here, the last slog down into Fort William. To be met by that sign. And we looked kind of elderly and daughterly by that. Yeah.
Well, he has a hiking pole up there, doesn't he?
Now, this is the main shopping street in Fort William. We had to get to the hotel so the taxi could take us to dinner. So I couldn't shop. I was planning on shopping in the morning because the hotel, this main shopping mile is between the hotel and the train station. We were going to take the train station back to Glasgow, the train back to Glasgow. But my knees hurt so bad I couldn't even walk. So I had to take a taxi to the train station. So no, I don't have guilt.
Oh,
I didn't buy anything in Scotland. My lunches. Finally, the end. And we all made it. That guy in the middle is rubbing his sore feet. So that was our final dinner at the Silly Goose. And our last hotel was nothing special. It was a bed. So I left my boots. The brand is Basque, VASQUE.
Split.
Yeah, you see where the soles split off. Yeah, so there was no point in bringing those home. I went home and iced my knees for 6 weeks. So that's it.
So where's your next hike?
I'm kind of through with those long distance hikes. I went to the Grand Tetons in July last year. And then in October, I went to Bryson Zion. My knees were well enough to do that at that time. And I've just, I've seen enough rocks. I've crawled over enough rocks. I don't need to do that anymore. So, I mean, it was fun while it lasted, but you get over things. You grow up sometimes. And
You see any golf courses?
no golf courses at all. No.
How about trout near the streams?
Didn't get close enough to see them. And we didn't have any salmon. None of our dinners included salmon. I was really disappointed.
Socially inappropriate.
Okay. Oh, well, you just go in the woods.
Just like the bear.
The women go to one side of the street and men go the other side.
It didn't seem like it seemed like it was just flat and open.
Well, you just turn the other way. Depends on what level of distress you have. What you're willing to put up with. Yeah. So that's it.
Is that your carpet?
Yeah, that's my living room. There's my hiking pole and my pack. I didn't even unpack for 2 or 3 days. I just got the wraps out of the freezer and slapped them on my knees and sat there.
But what great hikes you had in that last year, huh?
Yeah, it was
I
a
mean,
great
three
year.
amazing hikes,
Yeah.
one pretty much right after the other.
Yeah.
Where were the other ones?
The Grand Tetons and Bryson Zion.
All in the same year.
And then in January of that year, a friend of mine and I went to Baja California on a whale watching trip. So I did a lot of travel last year.
Yeah.
That didn't involve any walking, though. That was
No, I was
riding in a boat.
riding in a boat
More comfortable.
very much. Well, no, it was really, really cold. It was really, really
In
cold.
January, it won't get,
Yeah. So I guess I'll
you.
close it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so much.
I'm sorry, what?
Not yet. How many days was it sunny and versus cloudy?
About 3 days.